Acts of Kindness Stories presents a powerful moment in a Toledo courtroom, a moment that would change everything for 8-year-old Sophie Williams. Sitting quietly beside her golden retriever, Buddy, Sophie seemed like just another child seeking comfort. But her dog wasn't there just for that. He was there to reveal a secret, one that no one had dared to speak aloud. The room was heavy with anticipation. Sophie, poised beyond her years, gripped Buddy's leash, her eyes focused, every move deliberate. But it wasn't until Sophie gave a subtle signal, a brief tap behind her back, that the truth became undeniable. The courtroom was about to witness something no one could ignore. Judge Charles Madden, a seasoned jurist, leaned forward, his eyes locking on Sophie as Buddy's behavior shifted from calm to protective. What followed left everyone in that room stunned, especially the defendant, Mark Carson, who could no longer deny what was unfolding before him. This wasn't just about a dog following orders. It was about a child's courage and an unspoken connection between Sophie and Buddy, one that spoke louder than any words could. Stay with us as we unfold this astonishing story that proves the power of silence, trust, and a bond stronger than words. At Acts of Kindness Stories, we believe in the power of the quiet voices and the brave hearts behind them. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story, because sometimes, even the smallest acts of kindness make the biggest difference. Sophie Williams was a quiet 8-year-old, sitting in the Toledo, Ohio courtroom with her golden retriever, Buddy, at her side. The room buzzed with murmurs, the kind of buzz you'd expect from a room full of people waiting for something important to happen, but none of them knew what was about to unfold. Sophie sat still in her seat, her little feet dangling just above the floor, hands tightly holding the leash of Buddy, who lay by her side, his warmth pressing against her leg. She didn't fidget. She didn't look around. She simply observed, a quiet force in a room full of strangers. On the surface, Buddy was just there to comfort her. A therapy dog, trained to calm her nerves and help her get through this terrifying ordeal. But as the trial went on, something much deeper was at play. Something that would change the course of this case. And in a way, change Sophie's life forever. The judge, Charles Madden, was an experienced jurist. He'd seen countless cases in his career. Gang-related charges, family disputes, high-profile trials. But there was something about Sophie that had his full attention. Maybe it was the calm in her eyes, a calm that seemed out of place for a child in a courtroom. Or maybe it was the way her dog, Buddy, sat perfectly still by her side, unwavering and focused. Everyone in the room seemed to notice the dog, but no one understood the deeper connection between him and Sophie. Not yet. Russell Carson, the defendant, sat a few feet away, his posture stiff, trying his best to appear composed. His attorney tapped his pen on the table nervously, but all eyes were on Sophie and Buddy. She hadn't looked at Russell even once, not even a glance. But her grip on Buddy's leash had tightened slightly when he entered the room, a subtle signal that not even the defense attorney could have predicted. Sophie's mother, Kendra, sat a few rows behind her daughter, clutching a tissue in her hand. Her eyes never left Sophie. She hadn't said a word since they walked into the courtroom. Kendra was terrified, not just for her daughter, but for what this moment might reveal. It was a mother's quiet fear that no one else could see, a fear of the truth that Sophie was about to share, a truth that would change everything. Judge Madden cleared his throat, calling for attention. "Miss Williams, are you ready?" he asked. Sophie looked up at her court-appointed therapist, who nodded back at her. Sophie didn't smile, but she nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor," the therapist said on her behalf. With that, the trial began in earnest. The prosecutor, Andrea Selden, stepped forward and began asking questions. Russell had already given his statement, denying any involvement in the incident. He claimed he was at home, watching TV alone the night of the event. But the room grew heavy as the questioning continued. There were photos, pictures of Sophie in a place she shouldn't have been, photos that no child should ever be forced to look at. The room became still. The air grew thick with discomfort, and even though Russell tried to maintain his composure, something was happening. Buddy had begun to stir. His relaxed posture, the kind that had been calm throughout most of the trial, started to shift. His head came up. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Russell. Sophie didn't flinch. She didn't look away. Her breathing, slow and controlled, betrayed a calm that was only skin deep. The questioning continued, with nothing groundbreaking until the moment came. The moment when Russell blurted out, "That dog is just trained to react. This is all a setup." Sophie didn't flinch. She remained composed, but her fingers slid behind her back, her hand giving 2 small, discreet taps. It was so subtle that only those paying attention might notice. But Buddy noticed. His ears perked up, his stance shifting from relaxed to protective, and the room seemed to hold its breath. No one could have predicted what came next. The scene flashed back to a few months earlier, when Sophie had been sitting in her aunt's backyard in Decatur, Georgia. She watched Buddy play with a red tennis ball, but her mind was elsewhere. Her aunt, Carla Newsom, a retired canine handler, stood beside her, arms crossed, watching her niece closely. They had been practicing something important, something that would help Sophie in this moment. Sophie had looked at Buddy and said, "I don't want him to look at me. Not ever again." Carla had knelt beside her, her voice soft but firm. "We'll teach Buddy to watch for you. You're not alone in this." And so, the training began, small, deliberate actions that grew into something bigger. Buddy was trained to protect, to position himself between Sophie and anyone who made her feel unsafe. Every tap of Sophie's foot, every gesture, Buddy responded without hesitation. They became a team, an unspoken partnership. And in the back of her mind, Sophie knew, one day this training would be tested. The day before the trial, Carla had one last session with Sophie. She mimicked the courtroom scenario as best she could, teaching Sophie how to remain calm and focused, even when everything around her seemed chaotic. And Sophie, for the first time, gave Buddy the signal, 2 taps behind her back. He responded immediately, shifting into a protective stance, just like they had practiced. Carla felt a lump rise in her throat. She wasn't sure how this would play out, but she knew Sophie was ready. Back in that courtroom, it was one thing to prepare, and quite another to witness it all unfold. As Russell continued his testimony, Buddy had shifted his stance. His eyes locked on the man, unblinking. The tension in the room had grown, thick and suffocating. Even the defense attorney seemed uncomfortable, glancing nervously at Buddy. The prosecutor, Andrea Selden, continued, "Mr. Carson, you've stated you were alone that night. Are you sure of that?" "I'm telling the truth," Russell insisted, leaning back in his seat. Andrea stepped closer to him, her tone unwavering. "You've also stated you've never met the minor in this case. Is that correct?" Russell hesitated, his voice trembling slightly. "Correct. I don't know her." The room grew even quieter. All eyes were on Sophie. She still hadn't looked up, but Buddy hadn't stopped watching Russell. His posture was tense, protective, his growl just barely audible. It wasn't a loud growl, but it was enough to send a chill through the courtroom. Andrea turned to Sophie. "Sophie, do you feel safe right now?" Sophie didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached down and gently touched Buddy's back. Without a word, Buddy let out a low, almost imperceptible growl. It was a quiet but undeniable signal that he knew the truth. The defense attorney leaped to his feet, objecting. "This is speculative. The dog can't testify." But Judge Madden, who had been watching intently, held up his hand. "Sit down, Mr. Lasky. You'll have your turn." It was clear to everyone that the dog, in his own silent way, had spoken. Andrea retrieved a video from Sophie's therapy sessions, and with the judge's permission, she presented it to the court. The video showed Sophie and Buddy practicing their signals. It wasn't just a cute training session, it was the heart of what was happening in that courtroom. Sophie's signals, Buddy's responses, all of it spoke to something deeper, something undeniable. Judge Madden, who had seen countless cases in his career, leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. He had seen many courtroom dogs, but never one who responded with such instinct in real time. His words were simple but profound. "I've never seen anything like this." Sophie remained silent. She didn't speak, but her presence filled the room. And that was enough. The trial continued, and as the evidence mounted, so did the weight of Russell's discomfort. Every movement he made, every glance he cast toward Sophie, was followed by Buddy's unwavering stare. It was no longer just a matter of evidence. It was about the truth being spoken through actions, through instincts, and through the silent language of a girl and her dog. When the verdict was finally read, "Guilty" echoed through the room. Sophie hadn't spoken a word, but her actions had spoken volumes. And the truth had finally been heard. As the jury deliberated, the tension in the room was palpable. Russell, once confident, now sat slumped in his chair, his face pale with anxiety. Sophie remained calm beside Buddy, her silent strength evident. The quiet moments spoke louder than any words could. In that courtroom, the truth had already been made clear, not through testimony or evidence alone, but through the presence of a little girl and a dog who knew exactly what to do when the time came. When the verdict was finally read, the word "guilty" echoed through the room, marking a moment of justice not just for Sophie, but for every child who has ever been silenced or ignored. It wasn't just a victory in the courtroom. It was a triumph of courage, trust, and the quiet strength of a bond between a child and her dog. Back home, the healing began. Sophie could finally sleep through the night, knowing that the darkness that once haunted her was gone. Milo, no longer standing guard at her door, curled up at her feet like a true companion, protecting her not just with his instincts, but with his unwavering loyalty. The nightmares had ended, but the journey toward healing continued, slowly but surely. What happened next wasn't just about justice. It was about hope, healing, and the power of believing in those who may not have the words to speak, but have the courage to act. Sophie and Buddy's story sparked a movement, an initiative to help other children who had no voice, no way to be heard. It started small, but with each new day, more children, parents, and even schools began to see the power of listening and believing. As they trained other dogs, Sophie became a beacon of strength for others, showing them that silence could be a tool for survival, and that their voices mattered. Sophie didn't seek praise, but she knew that her quiet strength had made a difference. It wasn't just a legal victory. It was a triumph for children everywhere who needed to know they would be believed. This story isn't just about a court case or a dog. It's about the courage to speak up, the importance of listening, and the power of believing those who need us the most. If Sophie's story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Your support helps stories like this reach others who need to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories. We're on a mission to inspire 10,000 subscribers to continue sharing these powerful messages. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard. Thank you for being part of this journey.